So great to have John Jordan back in the living room. John,
Thanks for
welcome
having
back
me
to the
here.
East
Thank
Coast.
You. Glad to be here as always.
Whenever I see you, I feel jealous. Because
Well,
you
vice
live
versa.
where I want to live.
Really? Well, you know, California is beautiful, but there's nothing like Boston. I will always, this will be my home forever.
You're a Duxbury boy.
Duxbury born and raised, and Boston College, so it's, you just can't shake that, you know? It's a good thing.
You do it. You got the California look, though.
I've heard I've started to transition over in that
it's-
way, and
it gets into
worries
your
me
blood.
a bit. It does. Yeah. It does. You start, you know, eating lots of green juices and that kind of thing, and you know.
Now, this has nothing to do with the Jesuit Rec Room or Loyola Productions,
no.
but what is it that makes the Atlantic Ocean different than the Pacific? They just have a different feel.
Yeah, you know, not to be a downer, but that Japan radiation thing, you know, they found that there's levels coming up on the Pacific there. So I get a little nervous about that.
Are you predicting earthquakes?
Well, I don't mean to doom and gloom and all that, but perhaps I am,
I
yes.
saw a movie about that a few months ago.
San Andreas, yeah, I'm not going to,
We won't go
not
there.
even going to go there.
Let's not talk about San Andreas. Let's talk about the Jesuit Rec Room. What is the
great.
premise? Because we're going to be airing this.
Yes, we're so excited.
This month.
Two specials here. It actually got started, many great minds came together for it, but my contribution was back here in Boston. When I went to Boston College, I used to spend a lot of time with the Jesuits there, and they created a fantastic environment for my friends and I to come and talk about the sacred and not so sacred. Okay. And as that carried on, and I lived in Boston, I would go to the Jesuits on Newbury Street. Father Chuck Conley, who's a great Catholic TV guy.
Beloved
He's
here at
amazing,
Catholic TV.
and Father John Spencer, George Winchester. Those guys would have us over, my friends and myself, just for conversation. And many of my friends are not practicing Catholics, but they'd always walk away saying, I never expected we'd have this kind of conversation, that I would feel this open towards faith again. And so when we got out to Los Angeles, we thought, is there a way to create something like that on TV, something that's open and inviting to both the traditional Catholic watcher, but someone who might not have the best relationship currently with the church? How do we converse with them? So we decided to get some Jesuits together and bring in some of their friends and tape some conversations about faith.
Jesuits like Ryan Duns, perhaps?
Ryan Duns, who's a Boston College guy, who's fantastic.
We should have him in the living room.
I
one
agree.
of these days.
I agree. He's a tin whistle priest, so he can do.
He plays the tin whistle.
An interview and music accompaniment.
We definitely have to have him on this show.
Two for the price of one. But yeah, so Ryan's actually in our second episode, which we did in Chicago. And we also are featuring in that Sister Nancy Sylvester, who was president of the Leadership Conference of Women Religious, and Carolyn Mace, who you may have seen on Oprah. She was raised Catholic and educated by sisters and priests, but has, you know, sort of become a author, New York Times bestselling author of her own, has a lot of followers that perhaps aren't in organized religion. So it was a great opportunity to discuss with Carolyn and build a bridge there and see the differences, but also the similarities.
What's the meaning of the rec room?
So Jesuits, every house you go to has a rec room where there's a place to gather before dinner and
Okay, I get it.
perhaps have a snack, some drinks, and conversation. And so that's really the vibe we wanted to create, something very informal. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the launch episode, airing on Catholic TV.
Yes.
What's featured in that?
That was that's fantastic. We went to San Francisco and met with the author Anne Lamott. And Anne, I don't know if you've read any of her books, but she has a bunch of bestsellers, and they always feature her best friend, who's a Jesuit priest, Father Tom Weston. But they've actually never done an interview together. So we got in touch with them and said, do you want to come on camera and talk about some things? The two of them write and talk about very well faith, but also recovery, the addiction recovery process. Okay. And so Father Radmar Howe, as well as Father Eric Sundrup, who founded the Jesuit Post, sat down with Anne and Tom to talk about everything from addiction to forgiveness to what I loved, the whole point about forgiveness was that forgiveness is a selfish act. That was the thing, that it's the best thing you can do for yourself to forgive, and to not forgive is to drink rat poison and expect the rat to die. You know, so we went on a great line of conversation that was very funny, but also pretty enlightening. And if you've read Anne's books, you know she says whatever's on her mind. So that definitely stays true there.
And I understand that the premise, obviously, of the Rec Room, but what really inspired you to become involved in this project? It was your connection to the Jesuits, obviously, but as a producer.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting being a producer in Los Angeles who works for a Catholic company. There's a lot of people I meet who are mystified by what I might be producing. And the challenge for me was, can we produce something that will expand beyond our current audience and bring in others that might never consider watching Catholic programming? And so that's what we've tried to do. And really the only way I knew how to do that was recreate what I experienced in college with the great Jesuits at BC, which is have some conversations that are honest and open, and allow people to kind of start where they're at. Our second episode, the entire topic is prayer. So we're really starting at the beginning.
It's a big one.
It is. But, instead of going into the specifics of kind of the higher thinking on it, a lot of people say, how do you pray? Why do you pray? So that's really a great place to start and get different perspectives on that.
So people can learn more, obviously, at your website, which we're showing on screen.
LoyolaProductions.com, yeah. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
And, of course, they can watch the Jesuit Rec Room right here on the Catholic TV network.
Yes, we
Well,
appreciate it.
Mr. California, John Jordan,
It's always
producer.
a pleasure.
Always
Such
a pleasure to have you in the
Hope to be
living room.
back
Thank
soon.
you so much. And thanks for letting us share
Oh,
the
thank
Jesuit
you.
Rec Room with our great viewers.